Hey, what's up everybody? Jonathan Thames here from Rosie and Ernie Productions. Welcome to the Multimedia Mega Fan channel. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing the 2020 film The Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. God, that's a mouthful. This is the 8th installment into the DCEU and marks part 8 of this DCEU review series. So, this movie is definitely somewhat of a mixed bag for me. Whereas, I can easily say that I do like this movie alright for the most part, and do get some entertainment value from it, I can also easily say that it's one of my least favorite inclusions into the universe. From a general movie-going audience standpoint, there's a lot of things I think this film does pretty well, but where it really lacks for me is its delivery as a comic book movie, specifically as a representation of the Birds of Prey comics. Now, I can't really say that I was misled into thinking that I was getting anything different than what was delivered. I mean, the trailer very clearly sets the expectation that this movie is going to focus primarily around Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, and that the movie's tone is going to be much more comedy action than action-adventure or drama fantasy, and I assume it was meant to closely match the tone of the animated Harley Quinn series on HBO, which is pretty vulgar and gritty, but it is pretty damn funny in my opinion. This is the second major film to be directed by director Cathy Yan following her 2018 debut film Dead Pigs, and I think that her direction serves this movie and its clearly designated intent pretty well. I actually really do appreciate and enjoy the style of storytelling they went with, having Harley narrate through her discombobulated recollection of events in order to set up the movie's points of action, and actually thought that this helped to accompany the pace of the film pretty well, keeping it pretty fun and engaging. The comedic timing works pretty well for the most part, and the action sequences do feel pretty fun and stylish, and both the comedic and action-based elements are accompanied by some effective cinematography. Some of the sequences where Harley is being hunted down by various vengeful individuals, it actually reminds me a lot of something out of a Wes Anderson movie with the use of the zoom shots help to land the fast-paced comedic vibes. And I do have to say that I actually think these types of zoom shots are something that can come across as extremely cliche if they're being overused or they're poorly placed, but I think that in the case of this movie, just like in the majority of Wes Anderson's work, they were all executed pretty well. Another big contributor to this film's energy is the soundtrack, and I do think that unlike the Suicide Squad, in this case the high-profile pop rock music actually does help to accompany the film's intended tone. As I said before, the movie focuses primarily around the story of Harley Quinn, set after she breaks up with the Joker, which leaves her without his protection and makes her open season to attacks from numerous revenge-seeking individuals, the most notable of which being rising crime lord Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask. As the lengthy title implies, the theme of the movie is emancipation and the journey of becoming self-empowered. And I think that that theme is carried pretty effectively through Harley and through 3 other female characters that were introduced to through Harley's narration: Renee Montoya, Dinah Lance, and Cassandra Cain. All 3 are in different circumstances, either professionally or personally, that have each of them feeling trapped and powerless. The film also introduces us to a 4th female character, Helena Bertinelli, who calls herself the Huntress and who is on a revenge mission against the people responsible for the brutal murder of her entire family when she was just a young girl. Now, unfortunately, this is the point in the review where I have to start picking the movie apart a little bit. So, here are some of the things that I did actually really enjoy and appreciate as far as the characters and story go. First off, I thought they did a really good job handling Harley Quinn's character, and if I were to compare it to how she was handled as a character in the Suicide Squad, I'd actually have to say that I think this is a superior portrayal to that. We're given a chance to know Harley from a much broader perspective, and are given more of a chance as an audience to genuinely connect with her. Additionally, and I don't really want to get majorly into it, but I also really appreciate the fact that the approach in her character design for this movie wasn't an over-sexualized one, which is something that again makes this portrayal seem a little bit better developed and more of a genuine take on the character. And I think that Margot Robbie, again, really nails executing all of the characteristics of Harley's character very well, and I do look forward to seeing her performance in upcoming projects. Though my interest in upcoming DC projects altogether is kind of in question as of late, but that's by no means on her or on Harley Quinn as a character. And really, performance-wise, I think everyone does a pretty decent job in this movie. I mean, all the performances are fairly strong, shy of one, and even that one, I don't fault that particular performer for, but I'll get to that in a minute. Particularly, I did really enjoy Rosie Perez and Ewan McGregor's performances as Jurnee Montoya and Roman Sionis, and thought they both delivered on the iteration of the characters that the writers wrote for them very well. And I thought that both of their performances were pretty fun and engaging throughout. Rosie Perez delivers really well on the character's bite, sass, and attitude, and Ewan McGregor is pretty mesmerizing in his delivery as the highly eccentric and highly unstable crime boss, delivering well on both the twistedly comedic and also genuinely terrifying nature of this character. That being said, what I did take some issue with was how both of these characters were handled from a written standpoint. Actually, how pretty much every other character aside from Harley Quinn was handled. In the case of Black Mask, my biggest issue is that we really didn't get to see Roman Sionis as Black Mask for very much of the movie at all, and when we do, we're not really given any insight as to what the Black Mask is supposed to represent for the character, so it just kind of feels like, okay, he puts the mask on just because? I just think it probably would have been a lot cooler if they had taken just one extra scene to explore the psyche behind it, to give it just a little more substance other than, oh, it's just a cool-ish looking mask that he wears. Specifically, I think it would have been a really great opportunity to explore it further in the scene where Harley is psychoanalyzing him as a psychiatrist. I also really don't like how any of the actual Birds of Prey were handled from a written standpoint. Now, I wasn't really bothered by the altered character lineup, which I know is likely a point of contention with some, but I feel like I can easily appreciate an iteration of the Birds of Prey consisting of these characters. However, in the case of each of these characters, it feels like they took a very oversimplified, overly cliched, and overly comedic approach and represented them terribly in relation to their source. The characters that I feel suffered from it the very worst were the Black Canary and the Huntress, who are absolutely kick-ass characters, and they totally flubbed them up. Aside from the largely underwhelming character designs for both, they additionally really mishandled different elements of each. In the case of Black Canary, they stripped away pretty much any connection to any of the iterations of her backstory from the comics and or TV shows, which are all far superior to what they gave to her in this movie. I do not like her character setup in this movie at all, and I think it's an extremely lazy and cliche approach to what is traditionally a far more sophisticated character from a writing perspective. And the same can definitely be said for Cassandra Cain and Jurnee Montoya, but it bothers me a bit more in the instance of Black Canary because in the context of a universe where you choose these specific characters for your lineup for the Birds of Prey, Black Canary, having been a consistent founding member in the comics, should arguably be at the forefront and act as the team's leader. So at the very least, she should command the respect of a decently developed backstory to help elevate her into that role. But what they gave her was extremely non-inspired in my opinion. I do not like the fact that she's portrayed as this initially weakened character who exists powerlessly under the control of her crime boss employer, and I really don't like the fact that they made her his nightclub singer, because I feel like I've seen that kind of setup way too often between a controlling nightclub owner and his talent, and the example I think of right off the bat is Dick Tracy, which I absolutely adore, but this felt almost directly borrowed from that idea, and again, I really think this character deserves better than a recycled storyline that portrays her in this way. But There are two things that I do like about Black Canary in this movie, and the first is that they do portray her character as the character with the most integrity. I'd say she's easily the most heroic character in the film through her actions in helping others. The second thing I like is the performance by Jurnee Smollett, who plays the character very, very well, and I think she does a really good job, again within the confines of what she was given to work with from the writing, and even felt like her performance was strong enough to actually make up for some of those issues to some degree. However, I really can't say the same for the Huntress's character. In the case of the Huntress, I feel like they altogether just didn't know what to do with her as a character. The only thing they did get right with her, in my opinion, ironically enough, was her backstory. Though, I feel like to make a proper Birds of Prey movie, you'd have to expand on it a lot more than they did. Her fighting style is handled pretty decently enough, but I think its awesomeness is highly undermined by the character approach. I mean, they completely mishandled everything about her personality, and just how genuinely intense, fierce, and awesome her character is portrayed as in the books and TV show iterations. In this, she's presented as more of a socially awkward character, with her genuine intensity and rage being reduced to an exaggerated anger issue, and comes across more as a silly character who's played for laughs. They lean way too heavily into her awkwardness and raging outbursts, and it really effectively undermines the character's integrity as a badass female superhero by making her look more like a vessel to further implement comedic relief. Additionally, I feel like that really ended up hurting the performance, and not because the actress herself, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, did a bad job, but because the direction on the character itself was confused and not well thought out or executed by the writing team or the director. So it seemed like she was constantly switching between playing for sincerity versus playing for comedy because the team itself was just unsure about how to approach the character. In conclusion, I'm really split over this one. I can probably say that I do get more enjoyment and entertainment from it than I do take issue with it, and do overall have a good time with it on each viewing, but I feel like the issues I pointed out do stand out to me more with each viewing, and I do not feel like it is a well-executed or well-thought-out introduction for the title characters, though it did serve pretty well as a Harley Quinn movie. On that note, I really think it just should have been titled and marketed as such, and just have foregone the inclusion of the Birds of Prey in the title altogether, as it would have definitely been a more honest and accurate name for the movie. Overall, I give the movie a rating of 6 out of 10 and give it a light recommendation to DC fans and general moviegoers who kind of like darker comedies sprinkled with bits of gore and action. To hardcore DC fans, if there are any out there that haven't seen this movie yet, I would still reiterate that I don't think that this is a great inclusion into the DCEU catalog due to the issues I mentioned with what should be the focal characters. But if you like Harley Quinn and you're in the mood for a twisted laugh, then I'd say it's at least worth your time to check out. The Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn can be found currently streaming on HBO Max, so if you have a subscription and you want to go check it out after seeing this review, or if you've already seen the film, come back and let me know in the comments what you thought about it. I want to thank everybody for watching today's review. I hope that everybody out there is doing well, and I'll see you all in the next video.